One way to bring a little bit of life and interactivity into your web apps is to use drag and drop. And it's not just a fun little method, it has some really practical applications, such as if you've got a Kanban board, you can drag items into different orders and even move the whole sections across. Or if you've got some sort of data visualization tool, you could drag a name of a column over a graph and it could populate the graph there just by dragging items across your screen. Really cool. Here we'll be going over some of the basics of drag and drop, how to drag an item into a target location, how to drag it around the screen, and even dragging the same objects over into the same target area as well. Let's go over the example. I'll give a little bit of theory of how it works, and then we'll just get right into the code. So this is the example. I've got it on CodePen. I'll have it linked down below. We are going to be focusing on dragging circles around. So I've split everything into sections just to kind of compartmentalize it a little bit. First one is how do we drag an item, this circle, into the box, which is the target area. So that's what it's going to end up looking like. The second section is how do we drag it across the screen so we can get it all in this little blue area, and we can just drag, drop, and it will go to the right location. And finally, we've got an example very similar to the first one, but we've got multiple elements here and multiple target locations. So we can drag and drop, and we can overwrite elements as well, which is very nice. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Now, in terms of a little bit of theory, this is mostly done with JavaScript. There is a tiny bit of HTML. With the HTML, all we need to do is add the attribute draggable equals true. All this basically says is we can drag this element because most elements aren't actually allowed to be dragged. So we need to tell the browser that we can drag these elements. Then with JavaScript, today we're just going to focus on 3 different events. That is mainly drag start, drag over, and drop. There are a few other events such as drag, drag end, drag enter, and drag leave. I'll try to link some resources down below if you want to go check them out. But as I said, mostly focusing on drag start, drag over, and drop. Drag start is all about which element you are dragging, so that gets attached in this instance to a circle. Then you've got drag over, which is used to control what happens when you drag the item over the target area. And then drop is what happens when you successfully drop an item over your target area. So let's go over to the setup and I'll talk you through. I've already pre-populated most of the HTML. I've done the CSS and I haven't touched the JavaScript. So in terms of the HTML, as I said earlier, I've broken it up into different sections. So the first section is all about dragging into a target location. The second section is dragging it around that section. And the third section is when you've got multiple classes and multiple target areas, how to target those. So HTML, all that we have to do is add the draggable equals true. Because right now, if I try to drag any of these, they're not going to work. So let's just add draggable equals true on every circle. Just copy and paste. And now you'll see that we can drag, but we get the little error or not allowed icon when we start dragging. And that just means, well, we can drag it, but there's nowhere to drop it. I'll quickly touch on the CSS. A lot of it is fairly basic. The important part here is just the position relative on the circle. That's kind of important for when we get to the second section and we start dragging it around there. And we use left and top to set it in the correct location. JavaScript, this is where the magic happens. We'll do this section at a time. So section 1 is drag into target location. So we'll just target the circle and the box just so we have those. So const, give this circle 1 equals document dot get element by ID. I believe I called this circle 1. So that's our circle, and then we've got const. Did I give the box an ID? Let's give this an ID of box 1 just to make life a little bit easier. const box 1. Okay, so we've got these two elements. First up is the circle 1, add event listener, drag start. So what happens with drag start is we basically just need to say we are dragging this element, and we do this by using e.dataTransfer.setData. We're just going to make this text HTML, and I'm going to pass through the e.target.id. All this really does is it kind of stores the data when you're dragging information. We're going to store the ID that we're dragging, and then when we drop it, we'll access this data to know which element we're going to drop. Then we need the two events on box 1. First one is drag over. And this is quite a simple one in this case. All we need to do is prevent default. So why do we need to prevent default? Well, most elements you can't drag things into, and this just allows us to drag items into it. So if I just comment this out for a second and we have a look. So I can now drag, but I'm still getting the error. Like I can't drag over this item. So we just prevent default. You can see the cursor changes saying that we can drag into this item. And then finally, drop, which is where most of the magic today is going to happen. So we've got let data to drop. I don't know why I said date there. And this is e.dataTransfer.getData. And we're going to get this data, the text HTML. So I console log this data to drop. And I open up the console here. You see that I get the ID circle 1 once I drop it into the target location. Then all we want to do is kind of append this data, so the ID, to the box. And that is e.target is the box, .append child document.getElementById data to drop. And if we drag this over, it drops it in. Brilliant, but we can't drop it out. So the next section is to add in drag around the screen. So in this case, the target is going to actually be the whole section itself, this drag all. So we can kind of copy these two. This becomes circle 2 and call this section 2, just to kind of make it a little bit more obvious. So we got our circle 2 and section 2. We're going to do exactly the same with the circle 1 drag start and the box 1 drag over. And we'll update that. So we can now drag the circle, but it's not setting anywhere. That's because we need to do a little bit more in the drop. So what we want to do is set the position of left and top relative to the section. We don't need to append it. We don't technically need this data transfer if we're being concise, because we've already got circle 2 listed at the top. So what we can do is circle 2 dot style equals e dot offset x minus, and in this case I think my circles are about 100 pixels, so we'll just minus 50 pixels, and then add that on. Duplicate this down, do the same thing for top, and this is Y. So we drag it around now. We can drag it across the screen, which is really nice. We don't need this drag start. Let's keep it tidy. We do need drag over just to allow us to drag it onto the section itself. And the drop is just updating the circle to the correct location. So section 3 is we're going to use classes, and then we're going to do a for each loop to set up the event listeners and append the childs. But we can't just append the childs. We actually want to create a copy because I don't want to lose the circles at the top here. Like in example 1, we lose the circle here. So I don't actually want to just append that. I want to append a copy of it. So let circles equals document dot query selector all. So I want to target all classes for these circles, and I've given them a class of circles just so I can target them. And then I've got the same kind of thing with boxes. I believe that's called boxes. Let me double check. Yes, boxes. So first up, we've got circle start for each circle. We want to do circle dot add event listener, drag start. I do want to get the data transfer on this one because then I know which circle I need to copy. And then we've got boxes dot for each box. We want box dot add event listener, drag over. We just want to prevent the default. So how does that look now? We can drag. We're allowed to drop them into the boxes as the cursor changes. And we can drag every one. Great. Next is to copy the circle on drop and append it to the box. So that, again, that's done with the box as the target. So we got add event listener here on drop. So let data to drop equals e dot data transfer dot set data. I got it as text HTML. Then we want to create a copy of it. So we can do that using element copy, we'll call it. So we do document dot get element by ID, which is data to drop. Then clone node. True. If I console log this, element copy, and again, bring up the console, I drop this in there. Oops, I've used set data instead of get data. So get data, and let's bring up the console. So you see we've got the element here, a copy of the element. We should really update the ID just because you shouldn't have duplicate IDs in your application. Let's quickly update the ID with some random numbers. Math.random. Yeah, nice random ID. Finally, so we've got the element, we've updated the ID. Now we just need to actually append it to the box. So that's e.target.append child and element copy. Drags in, nice, should overwrite, perfect. And we can drag in, overwrite. Brilliant. So that is a basic introduction on how to drag elements around in HTML and JavaScript. I'll have links to some resources down below if you want to read about it a little bit more. Next time, I'll be going over how to drag and drop in a certain order, very similar to how you would use a Kanban board. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. Hope you all have a good day, and I will catch you later.